Hello, and welcome to Green Dragon, a monthly show brought to you by Howard Community College, where we talk about green initiatives in the state and county and ongoing sustainability efforts at Howard Community College. Also, ideas and ways for you to be more sustainable at home. I'm Bob Marietta, HCC's Environmental Health and Safety Supervisor, and I thank you for being with me today. My guest today is Doug Siglin, a well known environmental leader in this region. These days, he's focused mostly on helping people and governments reduce the use of fossil fuels in our homes and buildings. Thanks for joining me today, Doug.
Well, Bob, back in my younger days, I used to be the coach of a soccer team called the Green Dragons. So really happy to be here
All
today.
right. Okay. Okay. Doug, after you retired from your international and national environmental work, what has kept you speaking and consulting on energy managers in our region? And what was it that brought you to Howard County first to live and later to retire in?
Well, Bob, I came to Howard County about 20 years ago. My wife actually worked for Jim Rouse at what is now the Enterprise Community Partners based in Columbia. And we became aware of Howard County and Columbia as a progressive place to live and wonderful place to live. And we moved up here from Washington, D.C. and have had a great 20 years and they're looking for a lot more. I became really interested after I retired from my environmental career. I became really interested in climate. And I just thought to teach myself everything I could about the climate, the science behind the climate change, and what was causing it, and what are some possible solutions to climate change. And I've always been an activist, so I sort of combined the knowledge that I gained and traditional activism and decided to volunteer a lot of time and try to help people to do what they could to mitigate climate change.
Well, I know you have lots to share with us about what individuals can do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from our homes and what local governments can do to support those choices. But first, what career paths do you recommend young students who care about the environment? What should they do? Track should they follow as they begin their academic and professional careers?
Well, I'm really excited for anybody who wants to make a career in the environment because I found it a very fulfilling thing to do for the past 40 or so years. I've done a lot of different things in the environment as an advocate, as a congressional staffer, as a nonprofit leader. I worked internationally, I worked nationally, I worked regionally, and it was a really fulfilling career for me. And I really would encourage everybody else to give it serious consideration if they have an interest. You know, the one thing that occurs to me over all the years that I've done this is that the substance is really important. It's really critical to know what you're talking about. If you're going to have credibility, whether it's as an advocate or in any kind of environmental job, you really have got to know the substance. And so I encourage students whenever I talk to them to really drill down, really try to focus on what are the causes of environmental degradation and what are the solutions. And the more you know, the more science you understand, the more math you understand, the better you can be at your job, whether it's advocacy or in a government job or in a nonprofit job or in a corporate sector job. Really know the substance, and you're going to be that much better off and that much more effective, no matter what you do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice no matter what anybody's going to do. So thank you for that. So, what do you feel homeowners and even property managers do not understand about the burning of fossil fuels to make hot water and provide warmth in their homes and offices?
So, Bob, yesterday was a holiday, the day before we're taping this, and I took the opportunity to go down to Washington, D.C., and I went to the National Building Museum, which is a wonderful private museum in this great, fantastic old building that was built in the 1880s. And the museum is all about our built environment. And just as a sidebar, I encourage everybody to go take a look at it. It's a great place to go. But one of the displays really stood out for me, and it said there was a board that sort of introduced you to the museum, and it said buildings are the largest cause of greenhouse gas emissions, both in the United States and internationally. And that really struck me. So in the construction of our buildings, in the operations of our buildings, it is an enormous cause of greenhouse gases and therefore climate change. And that's the reason that I've become particularly interested in what we can do in our buildings. And when I talk about buildings, I'm not just talking about commercial and industrial buildings, I'm talking about our homes. And one of the things that I've learned in my studies since I retired is how much impact heating and water heating in our homes has on greenhouse gas emissions and therefore on climate change. And the main story here is easy. The main story is that people who use natural gas or propane or fuel oil to heat their homes or to heat their water are burning fossil fuels. Every time your thermostat comes on, you're burning fossil fuels. And those fossil fuels are exacerbating greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. And if you can move away from burning fossil fuels in your home or in the building that you're perhaps a property manager of, and move to electricity, you save money, it's better for your health, and it's certainly better for the environment. So my message, my core message to everybody is think about your own home and your own buildings that you're working in, and whether it's possible to move away from fossil fuel heat and hot water to electric heat and hot water.
Yes. So what can individuals and local governments actually do to reduce the use of these climate changing pollutants in the atmosphere without spending a lot of money or making radical changes in their lifestyles?
Yeah, so the first thing is knowledge, right? And this is not something that people spend much time thinking about. All of us who have been interested in climate change for the last decade or so have learned about the importance of changing out your light bulbs to use less electricity, learned about the importance of electric cars or electric transportation or mass transportation to try to reduce gasoline use. But most of us don't know, really don't think very much about the impact that our homes and buildings are having. So the very first thing is to teach yourself something about the fact that this is a major greenhouse gas causation. And then from there, it sort of splits into personal action and policy action. And the personal action is this, and I personally just went through this in my own home, so I can actually speak to it with some authority, some recent authority, is that if it comes time to replace your furnace, you have a gas furnace or a fuel oil furnace or a propane furnace, as I do. When it comes time to replace that furnace in the natural course of events, don't look for another fossil fuel furnace. Look for an electric heat pump furnace. And our technology has gotten good enough now with electric heat pumps that they warm your house, or they warm your building, they warm your hot water. They do everything that you would expect of an appliance to do with great reliability and less cost than a fossil fuel appliance. So the first thing is personal action. Think about whether you can take that action to move to an electric heat pump for your heating and your hot water heating rather than a fossil fuel furnace. And then the other fork is what governments can do and what individuals can do to encourage governments. And there's been an initiative here in Howard County for the last couple of years to try to get the Howard County Council and the county executive to work together to say that within Howard County, new buildings have to use electric heat pumps. As simple as that. Not old buildings. The law, the legislation, the proposal wouldn't require anybody to go back and change out their furnace before it's time or do anything that would upset your house the way it currently is. But for new homes and buildings, the legislation would say we'd want to use this new technology, this new, more climate friendly, more budget friendly, more health friendly technology for homes and buildings in our county. And the county council is going to be considering that legislation sometime within the very next few months. And the role of individuals in all that is to encourage your elected officials to support that legislation. And it's easy. It's basically saying to your elected officials, your county council members, or Calvin Ball, the county executive, I'm concerned about the climate. I've understood now that heating and hot water in buildings and homes has a big impact on climate. And I want you to make this small change to Howard County regulations so that new buildings in our counties use electricity. And as I said before, as I said at the beginning, one of the things that really attracted me to Howard County in Columbia 20 years ago was that it was a progressive community in lots of ways. That would be a very progressive thing for Howard County to do, to set the bar high for other counties on the East Coast to just make that small change and make sure that all buildings in the future are heated and provided with hot water through electric heat pumps.
That's great. And I know personally that all of our local legislators, the council and the executive, have people on their staff that are answering these phone calls, and they're just making check marks and saying yes or no, okay, for the upcoming legislation. So they make it very easy for you to let them know what you're thinking about and how you think they ought to be able to vote. So Doug, tell us a little bit more about heat pumps.
So heat pump is actually a bad name for the appliance. I'm not sure how a heat pump got named, but a heat pump is an appliance that is actually very much like your air conditioner or your refrigerator. The way that an air conditioner or a refrigerator work is they actually take the heat out of something and condense it and send it outside or send it out into the environment. So maybe you've noticed that a really warm place in your house is the back of your refrigerator, because the way a refrigerator works is it takes the heat out of your refrigerator and puts it out into your house. The way an air conditioner works is it takes the heat out of your house and puts it outdoors. A heat pump uses that very same technology, and it actually works as an air conditioner when the weather requires it, when it's hot outside. But when it's warm, when it's warmer in your house than outside, the heat pump can take the heat and condense it and put more heat into your house and become a heating unit. So it basically works both ways. It can heat and it can air condition, all by the technology of just taking heat, condensing it, and moving it someplace else. And it's an old technology. Refrigerators, air conditioners have been around a long time. The heat pump technology has been pretty popular in the South for many decades, and a lot of states in the South use heat pumps, but it's because it doesn't get very cold in the South, and so the old sort of technologies of heat pumps have worked pretty well. In Maryland, a lot of people have had experience with heat pumps over the last few decades. Maryland's a little colder than it is in the South, and so many people have had the experience that their heat pump didn't work that well, and it sort of put them off on the whole idea. But what's happened in the past decade is that since climate change has become such a big issue, the federal government and the companies that make heat pumps have really put a lot of money into new technologies. And heat pumps now can work efficiently to heat your house when the outdoor temperature is 0, or the very best of the models can go down to about minus 19 or minus 20 degrees outside, which is just unbelievable to me that when it's minus 19 degrees outside, this technology can still find heat in the outdoor environment, condense it, extract it, and use it to heat up your house. And so the new heat pumps, every year the technology gets better. And just this year, there's been a big technological leap forward in 2025. And so now the technology is such that it can be used in homes and commercial buildings and can effectively, healthily, cost effectively heat your building.
It sounds great. Now, if the power companies are burning natural gas to make electricity, why doesn't it make sense to burn natural gas for heat in our homes?
Well, Bob, from a climate change perspective, it doesn't make sense to burn anything. And, whether it's fuel oil or natural gas or propane, or gasoline in your car, they're all carbon-based fossil fuels. And when you burn them, they create carbon dioxide and they make climate change worse. Now, what happens on the generating side is that the companies that generate power for the grid, generate electricity for the power for the grid, they use a combination of fuel. And it used to be that coal was really prevalent, and then we all became aware that coal was really bad. And so a lot of companies converted their generating plants from coal to natural gas. Natural gas is still a fossil fuel. It's not as bad as coal. It's about 60% as bad as coal. So if coal would put, say, a ton of carbon dioxide in the air per unit of heat, natural gas puts about 60% of carbon dioxide in the air per unit of heat. It's still not a great fuel, but it's a transition fuel. It's a fuel that is being used for generating power when we move away from coal and when we're not ready yet for the sort of solar and wind and batteries and hydro, the clean energy economy is coming at us fast. We're getting there fast, but in the meantime, some of our power is still generated by natural gas. Doesn't mean it's good. It means it's better than coal. But the faster we can move away from it in the generating phase, the better we're all going to be. Move towards solar and wind and batteries and hydro and so on. And the faster we can move away from using it in our buildings, the better we're all going to be. So by no means think that natural gas or propane is a good fuel from a climate perspective. It's just better than coal.
Okay. Now you mentioned all these innovations that are happening with heat pumps. Is the what they call the ground source heat pump? Is that one of these new innovations?
Yeah, the ground source heat pump is really cool. It's as I mentioned before, the technology of heat pumps is basically that you extract heat from the air, even if it seems to be cold, and then you can condense that heat and use it to heat your house. And so if you think about this logically, as it gets colder outside, it gets harder for the heat pump to work. And they work very efficiently when it's 50 degrees or when it's 40 degrees, then the efficiency goes down. They'll still work, but the efficiency goes down some the colder it gets. Well, the interesting thing about ground source heat pumps is that underground a few feet, the temperature is always the same. It's always about 54 degrees. Winter or summer, the temperature is really about 54 degrees underground. And so if you can dig a well, if you can dig a hole in the ground, and you can basically just put a fluid-filled pipe down into that hole and extract the heat from the ground that's always 54 degrees, then your heat pump's always working at a higher level of efficiency, whether it's the summer or the winter. And so a ground source heat pump is actually better from an environmental point of view and from a cost point of view than an air source heat pump, a normal heat pump like I just bought. But they're somewhat more expensive to buy up front. It's more expensive to dig the hole, dig the well. It's a little bit more expensive to put in the equipment. But a lot of the people that I work with in Howard County who are interested in the environment, interested in climate change, have ground source heat pumps, and they love them. They're cheap, they're reliable, they're healthy, and it's a great source of heating for your house. And there are grants available. The state of Maryland has a grant that's available for people to help support the cost. I don't know what's going on with the federal government now. The president isn't really into this very much, but there have been federal grants available. The costs are supportable. They're just a little bit more upfront, but you save money over all the years that you run your ground source heat pump. You save operating funds. And so I think over time, it all equals out.
Doug, we hear the health warnings about gas stoves producing cancer-causing benzene. But what is the impact of replacing our old electric stoves with these new induction cooktops?
Yeah, so this is another great technological innovation, and the U.S. is sort of behind the eight ball here. Induction stoves and cooktops have been used in Europe for years. So first off, let me just say that burning gas in your house for your stove is not a good idea. And I know that because of Julia Child and a whole lot of advertising over the years, people came to think that natural gas or propane cooktop stoves were really the thing to have. And I must say, I had an electric stove. My wife and I had an electric stove. We wanted to have a gas cooktop. We got a gas cooktop. Um, it's it's good to cook on gas, and it's fun to cook on gas. You can regulate the temperature a lot, and so a lot of people like that. And we've all been sold that natural gas stoves and cooktops are the thing to do. Well, I'm going to tell you right here, they're not. And that again, if you can move away from that, you should. Traditional electric stoves, from a climate point of view and from a health point of view, are fine. From a cooking point of view, they're not as good as induction. The thing about induction is that you don't even have an element that heats up. It uses magnets to heat up your pan. So if you have a steel pan or a pan that has some kind of iron, ferrous material in it, you put it on the induction stove, what we would otherwise call a burner, and it creates a magnetic current that heats your stove. I've been cooking on one of these for the last 2 years plus, and it's absolutely great. And the interesting thing about it is that it heats up really fast. You can boil water really fast. You can cook your food. You can get to a high temperature really fast. And then you start it off, and the heat goes off immediately, and it goes back down to close to room temperature almost immediately. So I like to cook. My wife likes to cook. We love cooking on this induction stove. The only downside of it is that if you've been using Calphalon or some kind of aluminum pans or something, they're not going to work on your induction stove. So you've got to get pans that are steel based or cast iron based. My Dutch oven works great. My cast iron skillets work great. Other kinds of pots that we have that are steel based work absolutely great. But induction cooktop technology is really coming on strong. And it's coming on in the commercial space too, because in commercial kitchens, all that gas burning creates health issues. It creates a hot environment. Cooks don't like it. If you move in a commercial kitchen to induction cooking, it's cool, it's safe, it's healthy, and I'm told that commercial cooks in kitchens really like it a whole lot better than burning gas.
So I expect we'll see those appearing more and more as people get used to using them. So, Doug, I
Yeah.
tell anyone that will listen that our choices for everything we buy is a vote that influences not only politicians, but also manufacturers, businesses, stock investors, and even the folks around us who witness our example. So, what else would you like to see the people of Howard County do to help make our environment safer, cleaner, and utilities more economical?
Well, Bob, that's a key question. You know, the market really works, and the market economy really works. And as I talked about earlier, the heat pump technology has gotten a lot better recently. And a lot of the reason it's gotten a lot better is because a lot more people are interested in it. And so there has been investment from the government and other things, but the fact that people now are beginning to knock down the doors of heating and HVAC companies, they want heat pumps, means that the manufacturers are going to manufacture more. If you look into induction stove technology and you say, wow, this is really great, it's going to be a real upgrade for my kitchen, for my house, and you start buying induction stoves, then people are going to make more induction stoves and they're going to improve the quality of induction stoves. So the marketplace really works. And so again, I would encourage anybody who's listening to us today to make the personal choice, if you possibly can, when your old equipment begins to fail, buy the new equipment that's going to influence the market. But I want to go back to the county council and to this legislation, because this is going to be the key thing. if Howard County were to take the step, and it's actually a very small step, to say that new buildings have to use electric technology, not gas technology, that's going to set the bar high for other counties in Maryland, for other states in the mid-Atlantic area, for the entire country, to say that this progressive jurisdiction, that Columbia and the county that includes Columbia, has taken this step, is going to have a huge regional, national, even international impact. And there's 5 members of the county council. 4 of the members of the county council are Democrats. They want to hear from people about what people care about. And if our listeners today were to contact the county executive, or were to contact Liz Walsh, the county chairman, county council chairman, or any of the county council members, and say, I understand that you're going to be considering legislation that's going to be good for climate, good for health, good for cost, and I want you to support that. That's going to be an incredibly important thing for everyone here to do. And if you need more information about it, you can go to the website of the Howard County Climate Action Group, HOCO Climate Action. It's an easy to find website, and there's a ton of information on how you can get involved with that.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you, Doug. How can people find out more? Are there books and magazines that you really recommend for people, or websites? Or mine can't be the only podcast that's talking about this sort of stuff. So where should people be reaching out to other than the Howard County Climate Action?
Yeah, Bob, there's a tremendous amount of information that's available now, and it doesn't take much effort to find it. There's a really great national organization that's called Rewiring America. And actually one of the very senior people there, one of the top 3 people in the organization, I think, lives in Columbia. Really, really great guy, Steve Pantano. That's a wonderful organization that has an unbelievable amount of personal and policy information available about electrification. Electrification is sort of a key word here. Decarbonization is really a key word. There are groups that have been popping up all over the country, as one might expect. Some of them are in California, some of them are in Oregon or Washington, Colorado. Not too many on the East Coast, but I became aware, for example, just a few days ago, that my daughter in Maine told me that there's a little nonprofit group in Maine where she works that's encouraging people to get heat pumps, and Maine actually has the highest acceptance of heat pumps per capita of any place in the United States. And I can tell you, if you can have a heat pump that keeps you warm in a Maine winter, you're doing all right. It's an okay technology. So I would just say, do a little search online, look at Rewiring America, look for the keywords, the decarbonization or electrification, and you're going to find more information than you know what to do with.
Yeah, I'd also invite people to attend the Howard County Green Fest on April 12th here on campus. And I know you'll be there, Doug, but there are several organizations that'll be there talking about the climate and electrification. Well, Doug, we've reached the end of the time for our show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you on April 12th, not before.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'll be back next month with another guest and another sustainable topic. In the meantime, if you have ideas or comments, connect with me at rmarietta@howardcc.edu. You can listen to other Green Dragon episodes wherever you find your podcasts. You can also watch us on Howard Community College's YouTube page. Now, don't forget to share, like, comment, and let others know to join us and help us take care of our world and each other, because every small action each of us can take can have a great impact when we all work together. Thank you.